Who pays the rest?
The employee.
The employee would be obligated to pay the rest.
Yeah. In other words, the university's contribution is capped at a sustainable rate.
And there are a lot of possibilities in the healthcare, especially. You know, some base healthcare that we pay, and if people want additional type healthcare, then you have to pay. I mean, there's a whole series of things in these negotiations that are going to take place.
Right,
And
yeah.
we have, I can assure you, I personally am very aware of those huge overhead numbers,
Yeah.
and we got to do something.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you are aware of it. I just want to make sure that
Alan,
John
I really
understands
appreciate
my
I
feelings of
appreciate
concern
your
about what's.
evaluation.
So you were able to cap it at whatever the increase in employee costs were?
Yeah.
Well, everything, or just none of it?
No.
What about pensions?
Well, pensions, we have a defined contribution model.
Well, you already have a defined.
We already have a defined contribution model, which I've always thought is the best way to do it. So at the end of each month, Stanford puts in 10% of my pay if I put in 5% of my pay, and that goes into a broadly based mutual fund. So in the months over, we're clear and quits. They're not in any uncertainty about what they're going to have.
Well, and you know, and that's what Ronald Reagan did in '85, and as a result, we do not have this problem in the federal government. I mean, he made the conversion in '85 on all new employees that'd be a defined contribution plan, and here we are 30 years later, it's not a problem.
We've just got to do that. I just,
Well, you know, most businesses have got 401ks.
Right.
yeah.
Where, in many of them at least, especially if they're profitable, just like you were saying, if you put in 10%, they put in 5%, up to a certain level. And then you're free to do whatever you want with your 401k.
I'm not sure whether Menlo did that or not. They made a bunch of changes. I'm not sure it went that far, but they made a lot.
Yeah, but they didn't do it for they didn't do it for the safety, for the police and the fire.
Okay.
While, you know, doing that for new employees, it's going to take a while for that to be felt. So for the existing employees, I think what we have to do is reopen, as you're suggesting, the question of how much does the employer pay and how much does the employee pay?
I couldn't agree with you more.
John, you got a piece of cake, huh? Figure it all out.
Let's see.
Well, certainly, there's one option to do nothing is not an option.
Yeah.
Something has to happen.
John, I think,
The federal and state government need to recognize that too. The state, I mean, they're completely ignoring both these issues.
I know, Brad never mentions employee costs, which are 40% of total state budget. Never mentioned.
I think also, as I understand it, for some of our safety employees, they could retire at age 50. I just think everyone has to realize that early retirement is extremely expensive. I remember going through this myself at Stanford, deciding, do I retire at 65 or at some later year? And if I stayed from 65 to 70, that would just the added accumulation, the shortened life expectancy, et cetera, would double the pension I would have in retirement. So it's very powerfully leveraged, and with raising life expectancies, I think people who retire at age 50 can look forward to as many years in paid retirement as years in work. And I think that's clearly that is not sustainable. I just think age 50 is unreasonable and unsustainable. They're going to say, well, you want a 60-year-old fireman to come in and rescue you? Well, I think that we have to be creative in the job redesign so that when they're too old to do the active physical.
Yeah, well, early retirement.
What?
Early retirement in the U.S. was really based upon heavy manual labor
Yeah.
for many people, which, you know, we don't get into today too much.
Yeah, well, and I understand in Japan, where they have fairly early retirement, they also have kind of work redesign, so the retirees get called back to do jobs that they are physically capable. I don't know exactly what the 55-year-old policeman should be doing, but these are smart people with a lot of valuable experience.
Many of the 55-year-old policemen go to the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, they're going somewhere else and working. These people are not,
They're not-
for the most part, sitting on the porch
They're double dipping.
in retirement.
Anyway.
They're off working.
So we just have to address that. I'm sure you understand
No,
that.
no,
as well as I
you're
do.
preaching to the choir.
I know.
And, I would say, we're gonna address it, be sure of it.
Now, just as an aside, can you imagine Alan sitting there, PhD in economics, is it?
Yes,
Figuring out his retirement? How many hours do you think he spent going through that down to the penny?
So it came out well from,
April 6th at 3 p.m., optimal.
yeah, right.
Are there any other questions on the 5-year forecast?
Well, does Louise have any comments that she wants to make about what she's done?
I think the model, every time I run it, the result is the same. As the city manager mentioned, until we change the business model, I can run it again and it's not going to be acceptable to you all.
It was good data maybe a year ago, but now I kind of think of it as garbage in, garbage out, because you know you can't use those numbers. Because it's not sustainable. After 2015, we don't exist.
But it's telling us the path we're on unless we make serious
In that
changes.
case, it's crystal clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
And
makes,
that's why I was hoping to get the feedback from you all
yeah.
about your advice and recommendation where we,
Well, what happens in 2014? You assume that the parcel tax does not pass, is that why it jumps?
I am not making any assumption because that really need to go out to vote. So I'm not making a political statement one way or the other. So I
Well, no, but you've not included any revenues.
No,
You've not included any
Yeah.
revenues.
Right.
So 2013 and 14 is the last year
It's
you
the
have
last year,
revenues.
yes.
And that shows the 922.
I think the positive thing here is Louise now has a model for things like 5-year forecast, so, and new software that can handle it, so, at least if we have some numbers to plug in, that probably isn't gonna take us long to get that.
Mayor, I hope that supporters of the Atherton Police Department, law enforcement, see that 60% of that funding is going transparently to the police department, that they're well-staffed, well-funded, would be supporters of that passing again in 2014, and spreading that word.
Yeah, well, I have enough to think about for the next 2 months, without worrying about what's happening in 2014, to be honest.
Well, to have a persuasive case for extending it, I think that it's reasonable for the taxpayers to expect that their money is being used wisely and we're not spending it on unsustainable programs.
Well, how long is your normal contract? 1 year, 2 years?
The police department contract is, the present contract's not up till 2013.
So how long was that contract?
4 years.
4 years?
4 years.
So, I mean, these numbers are realistic. If you're negotiating 2, 3, 4-year contracts, you have to know where you're going to be.
Well, absolutely. And there are various reopeners in these contracts as well. I'm not going to discuss that with us. Okay, are there any other questions?
Is he going to come back to us? What's your projection? What's your expectation as far as getting everything where you want to come back and tell us what's happened? June or July or? May.
Better do it before then. In fact, that brings us to the subject of what date should we have for the next committee meeting?
I think John should tell us when he thinks he'll be ready.
I think we need to have it before the council meeting, right? Council meeting is on the 18th.
When does council hear the budget? First line.
Normally, in the May meeting, they have the first public hearing.
So we need our best shot, I think. I would say by Thursday the 12th.
Thursday the what?
12th of May, that would be my date for, my proposed date for the next finance committee.
Could we do it the 11th?
I won't be back in the office until, I'm calling first week of May.
Until the first week of May.
Yeah.
Is it 12th all right with you, or the 11th?
Is that the
That's
second?
not the first week.
Second week. The 11th and 12th is the second week, the first week is the second to the 6th.
Yeah, but I would,
That's right.
maybe,
We're not asking you to wait a minute. You're gonna present it, what you have on a date around the 11th or 12th, whatever.
I won't be able to send you anything until that Monday.
So that's the 9th.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's the 9th.
That's
So-
okay, that work for you?
Unless I don't think the committee, the council want to hold a special session to hear the first budget. You want it on the regular May agenda, right?
That's
We have
right,
enough
but we
time?
want to have it in the finance committee before the council.
Right.
So, Louise, what, I mean, what happens then, it could be the 13th as well, which is a good day.
What is council meeting, May?
18th.
18th.
Well, you'd have to meet with Tommy, I have the plane tickets and appointments made to fly to the east on the 12th.
But then the agenda
So then we
pattern,
should meet on the 11th.
The 11th would be fine.
The 11th, is the 11th acceptable?
That's fine.
11 o'clock
11th
again?
is fine.
11 o'clock?
okay, but the agenda packet for the budget has to go out to the council on the 11th in order for the
Oh.
18th meeting.
So maybe we have to
Well, I'm willing to back up
do some.
a week if that helps. Oh, wait, she's
Louise is gone.
Well, can we talk about,
How about the 10th? Doesn't give us much time, but at least it gives us a chance to review it before the council.
10th is okay.
We do it at 11 o'clock on the 10th, that's all right with me.
Louise, why do you have to send it to the council that early?
That's what I'm asking, because
Yeah.
normally they have their first hearing in the May agenda and then adoption in the June agenda.
But you don't need to send it to the council a week ahead of time.
Does the public need to have notice of whatever
Yeah,
They
you're...
don't get it till the Friday.
Only the
But they
Friday.
don't need that much, no.
They don't need that much.
Yeah.
Friday's soon enough.
Friday's soon enough.
Yeah,
Send it.
Friday.
So if we meet
Wednesday,
on Wednesday, 11th, at 11 a.m., we've got our comments then to make. You've got 2 days to review them, and we have to get it out to the council and for the public notification to the 15th.
depend on how much.
How does that do with you, John?
well,
John is moving like hell at the moment, I've got to say that, on lots of different things. I know some of them, but they're not particularly public. But he's moving, we're not holding him up in any way. He's going to get the facts, put this together. And it's facts that are going to mean, I believe, some changes. He's going, full steam ahead at the moment with as much help as we can give him. So certainly he and I are working closely. I'm sure the other council members are working closely with him. And Bill, I'm sure the other member of the finance committee is. So we're not holding John up, but we got to have something that we can look at
Right, John,
by the
by the
Wednesday.
11th, are you going to be able to even deal with the labor side before that in
Well,
place?
No, but we'll have to make some assumptions.
I don't know, but maybe what we could do is talk in some generalities
Okay,
and see if that's moving in generally the right direction. I know you have some very specific thoughts about it, so I think we might be able to get back and do it. And if I can, I can. In which case I have to skip over and just refer to council meeting in closed session.
Well, I think that as far as, employee negotiations go, while clearly these negotiations may take longer, we are going to make some assumptions as to what we can afford on these negotiations. And that's what we're paid for. I mean, that's why I have my salary here.
Well, we
I think that one, we're gonna have to
We could
address
cut
that.
that one and say,
But it's like in any position. In a senior position, you're paid not for paralysis by analysis, but for looking at the facts and then making a judgment call. And that's what we're going to do in my mind. We're going to make a judgment call on our employee expenses, and hopefully we'll be right. But if we're not right, we'll win a few and lose a few.
okay, so on the
Although-
11th.
although if we're not right in the wrong direction, we'll have to make layoffs, won't we?
Well, I don't want to address that. My feeling is that that's not an idea at the moment.